of Revenue and Expenditure was approved for the fiscal year 2022 from January to December, both these dates inclusive. So it's very important. Today, the Minister of Finance will introduce a motion which will enable the National Assembly members to move to the other stage where the appropriation bill will be read for the second time. Now, this appropriation bill is important. Why it is important is because it will give permission for the government or authority for the government to get the money that they need in terms of expenditure and revenue from the consolidated revenue. From the consolidated fund. The consolidated fund is the account of the state, which contains the taxpayers' money. So government, is going to tell us how they intend to raise money and actually how that will impact the lives of people. The Minister of Finance has just arrived, and we will allow him to come in. So first of all, what I will do is to ask some National Assembly members questions with regards to today's significant moment. So we have the Kian Central, the National Assembly of Kiang Central, Mr. Gazama, Bakari Gazama, Kamara, yes, Bakari Gazama. So we will ask the question, how important is this session today? You've just, witnessed the approval of the budget estimates of revenue and expenditure. What does this mean today for you?
Thank you very much. I think apart from the Constitution, this is the most important appropriation, the act rather, because once it is passed, it becomes an act. It is going to determine the ways and manners in which the government is going to raise the revenue and how it is going to be spent. And then if you look at this year's budget, it's unique in the sense that the Minister of Finance as well as Parliament work very tirelessly to make sure that we reduce our deficit. Unlike last year when we had about 5 billion deficit. So this year we're talking of 2 billion deficit. The Minister of Finance worked very hard together with that of the National Assembly, particularly the FR committee, to make sure that we really rationalize our expenditure, particularly in the social sector. In education, if you look at it, in the health, these are the most important areas. So the bulk of the budget this year, if you look at it, is going into the social sector, which is very, very important. You take into account the COVID era. We need to put plans in advance to make sure that in the event there is a surge of cases, there will be enough funds to take care of such situations. Scholarships are very important. You remember last July, September, we had an extraordinary session to look at the supplementary appropriation, and then the priority was given to higher education. So this year also we looked at it, and then we deem it necessary to at least increase their scholarship funds. So these are basically the most important areas. And then if you look at the IEC2, this is an election year. I think they got about 12 million plus. So there are certain ministries that the National Assembly dare not to touch. We did not touch those ministries, particularly the Foreign Affairs. I'm part of the Foreign Affairs Committee. We had a bilateral with the peers, and then when he explained the predicament that our missions are undergoing, it's really pathetic. So these are areas that we really focused, we looked at it, and then said, let us not reduce their budget.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Member for Kiang Central. So we will move forward to interview more National Assembly members. We have the National Assembly members, the National Assembly member for Janjambure, Mamadou Cisse. We would just like to tell you, we've witnessed the approval of the budget estimates of revenue and expenditure. Now the appropriation bill is to be considered before you. The government is prioritizing expenditure in the social sector, basically capital expenditure. We've just, excuse me, I am afraid the Speaker is being welcomed into the National Assembly chambers. Very soon, the official ceremony where the Minister of Finance will be presenting the budget speech, introducing the appropriation bill for the fiscal year 2022. The Speaker is saying the prayers of the National Assembly.
consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner, to promote thy honor and glory, to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of this country, and of those whose interests thou hast committed to our child. Amen. Good morning. Please be seated. Communication from the chair. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody.
We will now allow the session to continue. The session has just begun. Communication from the, from the clerk. In a moment,
Section 152, subsection 1 of the 1997 Constitution, the Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs tabled the draft estimates of revenue and expenditure of the Gambia for the 2022 fiscal year, January 1st to December 31st, 2022, both days inclusive, on Monday, the 18th of October, 2021. Accordingly, and pursuant to Section 152(1)(a) of the Constitution and Standing Order Clause 686, Subclause 2, the National Assembly considered and approved the said estimates with amendment on Monday, 25th of October, 2021. As a result, and pursuant to Section 1523 of the Constitution and Standing Order Clause 87, Subclause 2, the Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs is here today to introduce the Appropriation Bill 2022 for consideration and enactment by this August Assembly. In introducing the bill, and in accordance with Standing Order 87.4, the Honorable Minister will set out any amendments made to the estimates, present and outline government's fiscal policies and programs for the year 2022, commonly known as the budget speech. Thank you all for your kind attention. Clerk, can we proceed, please? Thank you.
Correction and approval of records of votes and proceedings of the National Assembly sitting for Monday, 25th October, 2021.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, the record of votes and proceedings of the National Assembly of Monday, the 25th of October, 2021 is before us. And any honorable member, please move a motion for correction and approval of the record of proceeding votes of the National Assembly sitting of Monday, the 25th of October, 2021. I'll take Fuji Jaram on the member.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I rise to move that the record of votes and proceedings of the National Assembly sitting of Monday, 25th October, 2021 be corrected and approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any seconder? Yes, Musmulala.
Thank you, Ma. I rise to second the motion.
Thank you very much. It has been moved and seconded that the record of votes and proceedings of the National Assembly sitting of Monday, the 25th of October, 2021 be approved. Any issues, observations, or corrections from honorable members? I'll start with the front page. Any issues on the front page? Otherwise, we'll move to page 2. Sorry, page 1. Check the attendance. Make sure that everybody is correctly captured in the absence of present. Page 1. Police. Page 2. Yes, honorable member for telling me.
Thank you, ma'am. My name was factored in the absentees list on number 5.
Yes, viewers, thank you very much. What is happening right now is the correction of votes and proceedings of the previous sitting of the National Assembly. As part of the procedures of the National Assembly, at every sitting, the previous votes and proceedings, the corrections are made. So that is the process that is ongoing before the National Assembly. The Minister of Finance to deliver the budget speech marking the introduction of the Appropriation Bill. What we expect from the Minister of Finance is the statement on the economic and social condition. Excuse me. What we are witnessing right now is the correction of votes and proceedings of the previous sitting of the National Assembly. It's part of the procedure. In a moment, right after that, the Minister of Finance will be invited to the podium to deliver the budget speech, in which he will give a statement on the economic and social condition of the Gambia and the policies considered or to be enacted. So the Appropriation Bill is the law that will give government or the executive the authority or the power to spend the taxpayers' money from the consolidated fund. The consolidated fund contains the monies that were raised for the purpose of or on behalf of the taxpayers. So while the minister will be delivering his speech, there will be a summary of revenue and expenditure, including financing of the budget. The budget for the 2022 fiscal year is $29.87 billion. And the greater chunk of that revenue and expenditure will go to capital expenditure, meaning in terms of infrastructure, roads. We also have infrastructure projects that are ongoing. The 2022 fiscal year, we've seen roads infrastructure, social services. There will be the introduction of the national health insurance, which also will be financed through this budget. We've also seen in the previous budget and this budget, government introducing what is called a program called the Program for Accelerated Community Development, which aims to decentralize development from the urban to rural areas, providing roads, infrastructure developments such as access to water, electricity, farming equipment, tractors, goose milling machines, etc. It's just recently launched this month by His Excellency President Adama Barrow. Now, the other area also the Minister of Finance will talk on is the estimates of expenditure of each budget agency, classified as the current expenditure for each budget agency. The sources. Basically, beginning the whole program on this speech will be a statement on the economic and social condition of the Gambia and the policies which President Barrow's government aims to introduce to solve the development needs of Gambians. Because we are witnessing the correction of votes and proceedings of the National Assembly before Honorable Minister of Finance is introduced to do the budget speech, which will help us understand our development trajectory for the 2022 fiscal year. It's a very significant moment, greater chunk of the budget going for development. We've seen last year. There will also be, we all know that the COVID-19 pandemic is still affecting the country, and there will also be an expenditure that will be earmarked for the Ministry of Health, that is $1 billion to fight COVID-19.
Let me just read, and I stand to be corrected.
At 42 minutes after 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the Honorable Speaker suspended the sitting for prayers time and lunch break. If you come for on resumption, at 43 minutes after 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the Assembly resumed. So it means between suspension and...
I think it's an error.
Exactly, so it needs to be rectified.
It's definitely an error.
Yeah.
1 minute.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that was my point.
Any more observations on page 6, honorable members? Page 7?
Page 6.
Page 6. Yes, there are.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Wherever it appears, Honorable Speaker should be changed to Honorable Chair, Committee of Supply. Thank you.
Lower Fuladu, are we on page 6?
Yes, page 7. Page 7. Yes, the first line, at 4 minutes after 6 o'clock in the afternoon. I believe it should be in the evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Page 7. On the invitation of the Honorable Speaker, the Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs reported to the Assembly what transpired at the Committee of Supply and moved ED. Thank you.
Either on page 7 or on any other page. Then I take it that we are all satisfied with the records as corrected. Thank you very much. Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the record of votes and proceedings of the National Assembly sitting of Monday, the 25th of October, 2021 be approved with amendments. Those in favor, please say aye. Those not in favor, please say no. So the ayes have it. Thank you. Can we proceed? Can you?
Bill, Appropriation Bill 2022, first reading by the Honorable Minister for Finance and Economic Affairs.
Thank you very much. May I now invite the Honorable Minister for Finance and Economic Affairs to table the bill. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the bill entitled An Act to Provide for the Services of the Government of the Gambia for the period 1st January 2022 to 31st December 2022, both dates inclusive, be read a second time. More than a year ago, after the coronavirus outbreak was declared a global pandemic, economies around the world continue to grapple with the multidimensional impact of the deadly virus. In the first half of 2021, the prospect for a return to normalcy was high, anchored mainly on the massive rollout of vaccination and a significant decline in the number of cases and fatalities from the virus. However, the recent emergence of new strains, especially the more contagious Delta variant, has diminished these prospects for normalcy and in effect rendered the dream a shifting goalpost. Mirroring regional trends, the Gambia experienced a third wave of COVID-19 infection in early 2021. This new surge slowed down prospects for economic recovery, particularly within the tourism and hospitality industry. After struggling with the closure of businesses and schools, the slowdown of economic activities, and a halt in tourism during the 2020, the Gambia had projected the start of an economic recovery in 2021 as economic activity began showing early signs of recovery from the pandemic-induced contraction registered in 2020. In March 2021, government launched a massive vaccination campaign supported by COVAX initiative and the World Bank. However, vaccine hesitancy and supply side constraints affected this campaign. The arrival of additional vaccines donated by the United States and French governments, combined with enhanced public sensitization, has boosted the vaccination rate to reach 13% of the target population as at end October 2021. Meanwhile, government will continue efforts to accelerate the vaccine rollout and intensify communication. The media is committed to continue its efforts in strengthening
fastest and easiest way to receive money transfers from abroad? Well, Q-Money and RIA just made it happen. Now you can receive international money transfer from RIA directly into your Q-Money account with no additional cost. Once you receive an SMS alert about your transfer, walk into any Q-Money agent across the country to receive your payment for free, or use the money immediately to buy credit, Q-Power, and other Q-Money services. It's fast, safe, and convenient. For more info, call customer care on 133. Q-Money, Senior Calculator. Terms and conditions apply. Join the Gambia's fastest growing network and enjoy high-speed 4G LTE. Dial star 335 hash to subscribe to QCell's 4G LTE service. There's no need to swap your SIM. QCell, Senior Boss. We innovate, others follow.
2020 to $15.9 billion in the corresponding period of 2021. The decline is attributed to a reduction in capital expenditure by 5% from $4.6 billion to $4.4 billion. As part of efforts to fiscal consolidation, current expenditure declined by 6% from $12.2 billion in the first 9 months of 2020 to $11.5 billion in the corresponding period of 2021. Over the period reviewed, personnel emoluments increased by 11% to $3.3 billion. Interest payments increased by 6% to $2.6 billion, whilst other charges declined by 18% due to a significant decline in COVID-19 related expenditures. The overall fiscal deficit, including grants, increased from $1.3 billion as at end September 2020 to $4.1 billion in the corresponding year of 2021. This is due to decline in total grants over the period. Revenue losses due to exemption decreased significantly by 56% from $2.3 billion in the first 8 months of 2020 to $1.4 billion in the same period of 2021. This significant decline is attributed to the establishment of a tax expenditure committee under the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs as part of revenue administration reform introduced in 2020. The public debt stock amounted to $81.8 billion as at end of the second quarter of 2021 compared to $68.5 billion in the same period of 2020. Of the total debt stock in 2021, domestic debt constitutes $46.3 billion, whilst external debt constitutes $35.5 billion. Monetary sector. On the development in the monetary aggregates, broad money showed sustained growth in reflecting an increase in the net domestic assets of the banking sector. This is induced by the impact of the government's fiscal stimulus program and complementary monetary policies measures implemented in 2020 to alleviate the negative impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the economy. As at end June 2021, interest rates have been generally trending down in line with easing of monetary policy stance and liquidity conditions. Broad money grew fast at the end of June 2021 by 27.5% to $56.6 billion relative to the corresponding period a year earlier. This was mainly on account of significant growth in the banking system's net foreign assets. The banking system net foreign assets grew by 48.9% as at end June 2021 from a growth of 27.4% as at end June 2020. The net domestic assets of the banking sector grew at 13.8% to $30.9 billion as at end June 2021 from 10.7% a year earlier. The net domestic assets is among the main sources of liquidity injections into the economy and is associated with the financing of government fiscal deficits, private sector credit, and credit to public enterprises. Headline inflation has risen to 8.2% in July 2021 from 4.8% in July 2020. The acceleration in headline inflation is primarily attributed to the rise in constituency variables. In the domestic foreign exchange market, the Gambian dollar has experienced modest pressure against major trading currencies between June 2020 and June 2021. Over this period, the dollar depreciated against all major trading currencies except the United States dollar. It depreciated against the euro, pound sterling, CFA by 8.2%, 11.1%, 8.1% respectively. However, it appreciated against the US dollar by 0.6%. Remittance volumes in the domestic markets have been on the increase and continues to be the main source of inflow in the domestic forex market. As at end June 2021, remittance recorded 403.6 million United States dollars, a 61.4% increase from total remittance recorded in the same period a year earlier. External sectors. Preliminary balance of payment estimate shows that the current account balance improved from a deficit of $41.1 million US dollars in the second quarter of 2020 to a deficit of $5.6 million US dollars in the same period of 2021. This significant improvement is due to increased remittances. The goods accounts recorded a deficit of $134.4 million US dollars in the second quarter of 2021 from a deficit of $122.4 million US dollars in the same period of 2020. This reflects high importation of goods during the current period compared to a year earlier. In the second quarter of 2021, the imports total $141.5 million US dollars compared to $126.2 million in the same period of 2020. Export revenue increased by $7 million US dollars from $3.7 million over the same review period. The service sector balance improved from a deficit of $10.9 million US dollars in the second quarter of 2020 to a deficit of $6.1 million US dollars in the same period of 2021. This reflects a slow recovery in the tourism as air charter tourist arrivals have increased by 91% from 2020. Current transfers net increase from $95.9 million US dollars in the second quarter of 2020 to $154.3 million US dollars in the same period of 2021. Workers' remittance over the review period amounted to $146.3 million US dollars compared to $95.9 million US dollars in the same period of 2020. The capital and financial account recorded a deficit of $52.9 million US dollars in the second quarter of 2021 compared to a deficit of $28.8 million US dollars recorded a year earlier. The financial account balance increased to a deficit of $64.8 million US dollars from a deficit of $61.2 million US dollars, reflecting a decline in direct and other investments. Key sectors, finance and economic affairs. Government intends to promote the establishment of capital markets as a way of mobilizing savings from long-term investments in the economy. This is in response to an increasing demand from government and private sector to finance productive assets that will spur growth. The current options to mobilize savings from investment are through the money markets and direct commercial lending, and these are not the most desirable instruments to finance long-term investments. Consequently, a new capital bill will be introduced before the National Assembly to establish the regulatory authority which is mandated to protect investors as well as maintain a fair, efficient, and transparent market. In 2018 and 2019, the government of the Gambia conducted audits of state-owned enterprises. The findings of this study reveals weaknesses in the internal control environment, weak governance systems, and lack of proper financial statements. These issues undermine the transparency, accountability, financial and operational performance of the state-owned enterprise. Based on the findings, the Ministry of Finance felt obliged to enhance our oversight state-owned enterprises' responsibility and assist the SOEs to improve their financial and operational performance. Achieving this would require a sound SOE legal framework and that strengthens financial oversight, support SOE's transparency, reporting, and disclosure whilst leveling the playing field between SOEs and private sectors. For these reasons, the ministry will present before this National Assembly a state-owned enterprise bill that seeks to establish a state-owned enterprise commission, which will in turn make provisions for efficient and effective governance of SOEs and monitor their performances. The demand for government services has significantly increased, particularly for the provisions of large-scale government projects such as roads and bridges, communication, technology infrastructure, energy, as well as large-scale commercial agriculture. This kind of investment would require heavy private and public capital injection characterized by public-private partnerships, PPPs. PPPs are innovative financing instruments that help to reduce the fiscal burden on government and at the same time provide the infrastructure needed of the country through complementary private capital. To this end, government will submit a public-private enterprise bill that seeks, among others, to establish the institutional arrangements for the government of PPPs in the Gambia, for the governance of PPPs in the Gambia. The bill will also feature provisions related to improving quality, cost, effectiveness, competitiveness, and timely delivery of public infrastructure and services in the Gambia through the involvement of the private sector. With support from the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, government has taken an evaluation of Vision 2020. These findings will help guide the coordination and formulation of a long-term development plan. The new vision will cover the period 2022 to 2050 and will provide a strategic framework for the comprehensive transformation of the country's economy and will also serve as an anchor for medium-term development plans. The ministry, in collaboration with COVID-19 Recovery Secretariat, is also working on the development of a green recovery-focused medium-term development plans to succeed the current NDP. The process of formulating both planning frameworks will be participatory and inclusive. The ministry continues to work towards enhancing government's public financial management functions. The upgraded web-based integrated financial management system, IFMIS, has been rolled out to all sub-treasuries, LGAs, and some embassies. The IFMIS is currently being extended to donor-funded projects and subvented agencies. The government payment process has significantly improved with the implementation of the electronic funds transfer model, which allows payments to be done electronically directly into the beneficiary's account. This has eliminated cash payments and the associated risk. The implementation of the Treasury single account is progressing well. A payment gateway platform to facilitate the automation and improvements of the revenue collection process is being implemented for further support the Treasury single account process. Internal audit has been one of the key pillars of government's PFM reforms. Significant gains have been registered in strengthening internal controls, risk management, and governance processes. Internal audit functions have been rolled out to almost all ministries, and by end 2022, it will be extended to all remaining MDAs. A new internal audit committee has been inaugurated with competent members to continue the work of providing professional guidance to the Directorate in executing their duties. The government of the Gambia is committed to reduce the inequality gap between men and women in accessing and benefiting from national development, equitable growth, and poverty reduction. With support from the IMF, the ministry is working closely with MDAs to implement gender-responsive budgeting that aims to mainstream gender inequality in prioritization and resource allocation. The ministry has formulated a medium-term roadmap for the implementation of gender-responsive budget reforms. In 2022, MDAs will identify gender issues and underlying causes of inequality, raise awareness of gender inequalities among policymakers, secure high-level political support for reforms, and strengthen the necessary systems for a smooth implementation. By the year 2025, gender-responsive budget reforms will be rolled out to all the MDAs. As part of the revenue reforms initiated, the ministry has set up a tax expenditure committee which is responsible for the review, recommendation, and monitoring of all duty waiver applications. As at end September 2021, revenue losses from duty remissions and exemptions stood at $1.1 billion. Compared to 2021, this means government has reduced losses related to duty exemption by 56%, meaning $1.4 billion is safe. The ministry is currently working with the World Bank funded technical assistance to finalize the tax expenditure policy, which will be the framework for granting and monitoring tax and duty exemptions and remittance. On public procurement, the ministry has reconstituted the Complaints Review Board under the Public Procurement Act, Section 54, subsection 1, to deal with complaints submitted by bidders arising from the processing of tenders of public sector contracts. The CRB is established to promote and uphold fairness in the public procurement processes through a judicious and impartial adjudication of matters arising from disputes in procurement procedures, and as such serve as a quick alternative to the court systems. The Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs has recently reviewed the 2021-2025 Medium-Term Debt Management Strategy, MTDS, that seeks to achieve the debt management objective of ensuring government financing needs are met at the lowest possible cost and are consistent with the prudent degree of risk. To achieve this objective, the ministry has started publishing an annual borrowing plan which is geared towards enhancing transparency in public debt management and will give the investor community guidance on investment planning. The ministry will continue to prepare and publish a detailed monthly issuance calendar on both the Ministry of Finance and Central Bank of the Gambia websites. Additionally, the Ministry of Finance, in collaboration with the Central Bank, has introduced a regular bond issuing program allowing government to issue medium and longer dated domestic instruments that provides financing and addressing refinancing risk in the domestic market portfolio, whilst ensuring a sustainable path for the public and publicly guaranteed debts. The ministry is also implementing the public finance management reform strategy 2021 to 2025. This strategy aims to create a transparent and accountable system for the management of public resources. In addition to providing budget preparation and execution, the strategy will also promote informed decision making the effective provision of public service, thus making infrastructure investment a more integral part of the overall budget process, as evidenced in 2021 and 2022 budget estimates. The ministry is implementing necessary reforms for our local government authorities, following the establishment of all LGAs on the IFMIS platform for enhanced financial management. The budget model would be extended in 2022 to support the implementation of structured program-based budgeting effective in 2023. To ensure value for money in the area of procurement and to increase revenue collection, the implementation of a digital tax system has already been done for 3 of the LGAs and will be rolled out to the remaining 5 authorities by 2022. In line with government's commitment to support local government authorities, the Ministry of Finance entered into a loan agreement with OPEC Fund for International Development to support urban and rural infrastructure development across the LGS. The loan agreement was necessitated by government recognition that the councils do not have the adequate resources to finance major infrastructure programs in their administrative regions, municipalities, given their limited financial capacities. Therefore, the loan amount of US dollars 13 million was contracted with Office to finance mainly the constructions of office buildings for mayors, CEOs, and their staffs, roads and bridges, markets, car parks, water supply system, multipurpose halls, guest houses, conference centers, and staff quarters for local government authorities. Office has fully disbursed the entire loan amount of 13 million US dollars. Beneficiary institutions, particularly the LGS, also made some counterpart contributions. Some of the interventions include the construction of a new Banjul City Council administrative building, Kanifing Municipality Council main administrative building, constructions of concrete and tar roads in Banjul and KMC feeder roads in order LGAs. The fund also covered solar ride at Giraffe, extension of water supply system at Kayaf and Janekunda of LRR, and 7 villages in Karawan area councils. Constructions of Latrikunda, Sabiji Market, and multipurpose hall in Quinala. Furthermore, we will continue to support councils in areas of policy and institutional reforms. It is worth mentioning that this support to the LGAs is being managed highly by our reputable GAMWORKS agencies. Both the African Development Bank and the French development agencies are supporting the government in improving domestic resource mobilization efforts and enhancing the revenue authority capacity for revenue generation. With support from the African Development Bank, the government is planning to undertake a second PIFA assessment in November 2021. The assessment, which is anchored on the 2016 framework, provides a yardstick for assessing and reporting on the country's PFM strengths and weaknesses. This assessment will cover all MDOs, SOEs, and LGAs, and will substantially improve performance of the country's PFM systems. Plans are at advanced stage to review and update the Public Finance Act of 2014 and Financial Regulation 2016. This is aimed at amending the existing laws and developing a manual that takes into consideration the fundamental principles and best practices of PFM. The new legislation will address the gaps, overlaps, and inconsistencies in the public finance legislation. Training of staff at various MDAs to improve the public sector understanding of the management and use of public funds will also be conducted. The Ministry, with assistance from the European Union under the 11th European Development Fund, continues to work on improving gender inclusiveness and empowerment, strengthen and institutionalize credible electoral process, reinforce social security sector reforms, and generally improve the PFM processes and procedures. To ensure effective aid management, the Gambia Aid Policy 2015 to 2020, coupled with the National Development Plan and the Development Finance Assessment, DFA 2018, provides a guide to how aid to the Gambia should be provided and managed. The Ministry is currently working on drafting a new aid policy to ensure alignment of aid resources and also support government's development plan objectives through effective resource mobilization. The Gambia Strategic Review Board was created to enhance efficiency of public investments. The board is responsible for the appraisal and approval of all programs and projects and to ensure their compliance and alignment to the National Development Strategies and Priorities Action Plan. During the course of this year, the board, with the use of the project appraisal guidelines, was able to appraise numerous projects in the areas of health and education. As one of the policy actions under the Sustainable Development Finance Policies, SDFP, and the public investment programs will be implemented in 2022. The rationale for the PIP initiative is to ensure that macroeconomic sector strategies are translated into programs and projects. This is a 5-year medium-term investment resource envelope that will be available to government of the Gambia during the period 2022 to 2026 for the implementation of the prioritized projects and programs of the MDAs. The overarching objective of the PIP is to further strengthen public investment management that outlines the priority programs and projects of the government. It is also expected to address the challenging debt situation and the required fiscal space for the achievement of our national development plan. Productive sectors, agriculture and natural resources. The Ministry of Agriculture has developed a national agriculture extension policy to promote sustainable agricultural production, value chain development, strengthen the human and institutional capacity of extension service providers, and the governance of extension systems. The ministry is also working with farmers to develop their capacity in new farming techniques and approaches to reduce drudgery and boost production and productivity. The department has also been sensitizing on farmers on climate change mitigation and coping strategies through the adoption of climate-smart agriculture. In the agriculture sector, the Gambia's bilateral relations with several Asian countries continues to thrive. Japan has donated $125 million worth of rice, including 50 tractors and farming accessories, and the two countries will deepen cooperation in the areas such as agriculture, health, and technology. And an additional 600 metric tons of fertilizer and 50 metric tons of groundnuts were also provided to the farming community through the support of the Japanese government. The government of the People's Republic of China, through their embassy, has supported the Ministry of Agriculture in highly significant measures. Within this framework of our bilateral cooperation, the Chinese government has supported the Gambia with power tillers, mini threshers, irrigation pumps, rice mills, and 10 metric tons of urea fertilizers, fisheries, and water resources. Like all other sectors, the fisheries sector has been negatively impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. A number of land-based fishing processors and export companies have been closed due to low fishing and processing activities, high cost of preservation, and low exports of fish products. In addition to the pandemic, the sector continues to face challenges that are hindering its development. This includes limited technology on the production of good quality of fingerlings for the coastal and offshore aquaculture, illegal and unregulated fishing, and the lack of Gambian-owned industrial fishing vessels. In early 2021, the Fisheries Monitoring Center of the Department was equipped with a vessel monitoring system through funding from the EU Gambia Sustainable Fisheries Partnership Program. The VMS will help with the monitoring of fishing activities, particularly of industrial fishing vessels operating in Gambian waters, and thus curb illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing. The fisheries sector is part of the Gambia's pilot project implementation by GAMWORKS through funding from the ECOWAS Stabilization Fund. The project has constructed a fish smoking oven for women at the Brufut Community Fisheries Center, with similar structures to be constructed in other fishing landing sites. The project is also supporting aquaculture development with youth organizations in URR through the provision of mini grants. The Department of Water Resources is implementing a climate-smart rural water supply and sanitation development project through funding from the African Development Bank. The project will construct 144 solar-powered pipe water supplies that will provide safe drinking water to over 400,000 rural settlers. Through support from the Japanese grant, additional solar-powered pipe water supplies are to be constructed in 2022 to benefit 80,000 people in our rural communities. Information, communication, and infrastructure. In order to ensure high-speed internet access for all citizens, the broadband policy and strategy strategy 2020 to 2024 has been formulated to help ensure last-mile access for affordable and quality ICT services in the Gambia. The attainment of these objectives will provide a robust base for government to fully roll out programs and projects aimed at digitally transforming the country's economy. The ministry will prioritize the upgrade of the e-government data center to effectively manage national data system, enhance public service delivery, and expansion of communication channels that promote participatory governance. The ministry is currently spearheading endeavors for the establishment of a technology hub at the University of Gambia and regional information and innovative hubs across the country. These efforts will help with promoting economic growth, job creation, human development, and poverty reduction. The establishment of tech hubs is in line with the NDP priorities of spurring research and development in ICT for employment and employability, and as well as for the upscaling of productivity across sectors through the exploitation of ICT. With the successful deployment of Google Plus codes in Banjul and Kanifing municipality by the ministry in partnership with Google LLC, the next phase of implementation in 2022 will expand this initiative to other regions. This initiative has positive implications for ensuring digital inclusiveness. To avert the unfortunate internet shutdown experienced on 3 occasions this year, the government is working with stakeholders in a bid to land an additional submarine cable that will complement the ACE cable and crucially serve as a reliable backup capacity. By the same token, some of the strategic interventions for the 2022 will be anchored on improving cyber security coordination. This will be achieved through a number of initiatives, including the establishment of a National Cybersecurity Coordination Committee, adopting a critical information infrastructure protection policy and regulatory framework, and raising awareness on cybersecurity issues across all sectors. Tourism and culture. Global tourism suffered its worst year on record in 2020, with global international travels dropping by 74% according to the World Tourism Organization. In the Gambia, tourism sector was the most affected, with tourist arrivals numbers by air in 2020 declining by 62% to 89,232. The target to reach 350,000 in 2021 is likely to be a daunting task, as the world has only recently begun international travels. With the reopening of the tourism sector for the upcoming tourist season, the Gambia Tourism Board has developed rigorous health and safety protocols and guidelines. Furthermore, the Tourism Board is in collaboration with the National Roads Authority has finalized the bidding process for the construction of 3 strip roads within the tourism development area leading to major hotels. The board has also completed the mapping of a TDA demarcation from Koto to Katong, which will guide the board on the available land, type of land development needed, and the level of encouragement within the TDA. Similarly, the arts and culture sector has continued to make tremendous growth despite the negative impact of COVID-19 pandemic. This sector has been hard hit by the closure of venues, restrictions in movements, and measures implemented in precaution to protect the population. These challenges, however, have not totally paralyzed the sector. Artists have been at the forefront of the fight against the pandemic through many activities funded by donors such as UNESCO to use the art to create awareness of the pandemic and how to minimize infection rates and enhance acceptance of the vaccines. The UNESCO-ECOWAS partnership has supported the National Council for Arts and Culture to engage Gambian writers, actors, filmmakers, dancers to take part in COVID-19 advocacy campaign. The NCAC has signed an agreement with Africell Mobile Company, who have pledged to refurbish the Gambia National Museum in Banjul in the coming year. The refurbishment will give a new and completely revamped look to our National Museum. This means there will be more exhibition space, space for performance, and office space for the staff. The project will no doubt boost our tourism attraction and attract more visitors to the National Museum. The rehabilitation of the Kerbach stone cycles, a UNESCO World Heritage Site in Nyanija, has been completed, while the dilapidated museum structures and perimeter fence refurbished and ready to receive paying visitors. Other refurbishment done in the extension of includes the extension of electricity to Jufure Albreda sites and Fort Bolen in Barra, which are also World Heritage Sites. In 2022, with the support of the government, more heritage sites will be refurbished and value added. This includes the Mongo Park Memorial Obelisk and the Berending Sacred Crocodile Pool. The rural communities located in these areas are expected to benefit immensely from the tourist visitations. The Gambia Tourism and Hospitality Institute has provided skills training in various hospitality disciplines for more than 5,000 young Gambians, both from and within and outside the country. This includes rural outreach programs carried out in annexes in Farafenye and Janjambure. Capacity development is increasingly becoming a priority of the Institute. Through government and the development partner support, the Institute is better positioned as a sub-regional center of reference in tourism and hospitality education, attracting students from within the sub-region and beyond. In a bid to decentralize tourism and to enhance tourism activities nationwide, a program on tourism and hospitality training in rural Gambia has been extended to Basse and Bintang in partnership with the Youth Enterprise Project. Over 120 young Gambians have been enrolled in the scheme that will build capacity and create employment opportunities. Given tourism roles as a catalyst for inclusive economic growth and development, which aligns with our overarching goal of the National Development Plan, the Ministry seeks to mobilize resources to promote inclusive, resilient, and culture-centered tourism for sustainable growth. In partnership with the World Bank, the Ministry has developed a public-private dialogue mechanism which will help deepen coordination, facilitate stakeholders' engagement in the sector, and prioritize the sequencing of COVID-19 recovery actions. The PPD mechanism will determine a series of top priorities for tourism recovery, including diversifying source markets, developing and enhancing tourism products, increasing and improving marketing, and building core capacities. As a result of these recent engagements with the World Bank and pursuant to the interests of the government of the Gambia to underpin tourism development as a contributor to the recovery efforts, employment generation and economic growth, the government has requested for financing to support the tourism recovery efforts. This financing will implement the recommendations from the PPD mechanism, strengthen the institutional capacity of the tourism value chain, improve the tourism enabling environment, increase the participation and value added of tourism-related MSMEs products offers of the country. Trade, industry, regional integration, and employment. Through the Ministry of Trade, Industry, Regional Integration, and Employment, the government of the Gambia is strengthening its collaboration with trading partners to support trade, integration, and employment. As part of these efforts, at a bilateral level, Motai signed Trade and Transit Cooperation Agreement with Senegal, Guinea-Bissau, and Guinea-Conakry. A joint trade committee will be established to monitor the implementation of this agreement. At the continental level, the Gambia continues to be fully committed to Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, and the government is working with stakeholders to ensure that the Gambia benefits from this agreement. The ministry has completed works on the country's tariff schedule for both trade in goods and trade in services, and is currently engaging with other state parties to finalize negotiations on the outstanding issues. It is hoped that the AFTA will enhance market access and make the Gambia access the 1.2 billion continental market. With support of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, the ministry has developed a national African Free Trade Continental with the implementation strategy identifying priority actions that will be undertaken by government over 10 years period to effectively leverage the potential benefits of the AFTA. On micro and small, medium-sized enterprises development, the ministry supported capacity building and policy reform using Empretech model, particularly for youth and women. The ministry provided training in entrepreneurship and revenue generation skills to enhance access to local and international markets. Under the Youth Empowerment Project, over 25 million was disbursed to young entrepreneurs through small business grants. In addition, 255 individuals have benefited from the Financial Emergency Program to ensure that their business survival during the coronavirus pandemic. The She Trade Gambia project launched a mini grant scheme for qualified companies to improve their access to finance and expand the capacity of their businesses. The ministry, through the project, has successfully linked major importers of onions to local producers and communities to source onions locally. To strengthen the country's quality infrastructure, a draft legal Metrology bill has been developed for submission to the National Assembly. The bill will strengthen the current Weights and Measures Act, especially on charges and penalties, in order to deter offenders. During the course of the year, the Weights and Measures Bureau has been able to verify over 3,500 commercial weighing and measuring devices throughout the country. The Bureau also verifies the accuracy of fuel dispensers at all petrol stations across the country. Verification of measuring instruments serves as a consumer protection mechanism to protect both businesses and consumers from unfair trade practices through the use of the measuring devices. Regarding employment creation and the strengthening of the labor administration, the ministry has revised the Labor Act 2010 and the Injuries Compensation and Factory Act. This bill shall be submitted to the National Assembly for enactment. The Ministry of Trade, as part of the implementation of the revised employment policy 2020 to 2025, has established an employment service center at the Department of Labor to facilitate the linkage between job seekers and employers, and plans are underway to create regional job centers in 2022. Works, construction, and infrastructure. On the rural roads expansion program, Lot 1, which includes the following roads: Sabah, Sotoko, Bambali, Sarakunda, Ngensanjal, with a total length of approximately 38 kilometers, is close to 40% complete. Similarly, Lot 2 of the road constructions at Kawur, Jimbala, Kawur, Kir Chandu, Kir Jibi, Nyangabantang is also underway. The Nyomi Hakalang road network, which stretches 85 kilometers, is also progressing, with close to 30% of the work having completed as at end August 2021. In July 2021, the Kiang West project, a total of 80 kilometers road, was launched. The project will include 2 carriage highways and provision of sidewalks, accessibility for the physically challenged and drainage facilities. As part of the OIC road projects for the upcoming conference, the procurement and contracting process for the 24 kilometers battle-hardened highway and adjoining 50-kilometer routes is completed. Works are expected to be completed within a period of 16 months. Contracts have been signed through funding from the national fuel level for the maintenance of roads in the villages of Bambakolo, Kudang, Kombo Coastal Highway, the construction of Soma, Mansakonko roads, Pakalending, Mansakonko, Farato, Jambur, Tujareng, Kunkujang, Mariama, and Kerawan, Nyawara. These roads have been subjected to serious depression, causing accidents and adding traffic congestions. The new electronic tolling facilities at the Senegambia Bridge will be operational by the end of this year. The National Roads Authority is currently proceeding with the procurement of a contractor for the fencing of the toll and installation of sanitary facilities for security. Following the design and supervision of the Trans-Gambia feeder roads and the Farafenye and Soma markets, the markets were completed and handed over to the respective councils. The Banjul City Council Rehabilitation Project continues to make steady progress in the constructions of the concrete and road pavement, with 86% of the total length of the streets covered and 31% of the additional works completed. Works on the footpath, sewage, and drainage are also steadily progressing. The People's Republic of China will be constructing under the URR Roads and Bridges project and will be providing lighting and facilities for the Basse Fatoto roads. In 2021, the ferry services at the Banjul Barra crossing has improved as a result of the implementation of additional operating measures and the installation of new landing platforms at both Banjul and Barra. The improved services has enabled the GPF and ferries to extend the daily operating times and increase the maximum allowable tonnage of 60 tons. This has accommodated crossing of interstate and transit vehicles on the same route. Following the infrastructure improvement at Banjul International Airport, on the rehabilitation of the passenger terminal building are completed, and building is now equipped to handle up to 500 passengers in peak hour. This development is in line with government's aim to increase operational capacity and efficiencies at the airport in line with the national development plans. Systems including self-service kiosks, among others, will be introduced in the terminal to enhance service delivery in accordance with international standards and best practice. Petroleum and Energy. The Ministry of Petroleum and Energy continues to pursue the utilization of petroleum, energy, and mineral resources as a stimulus for economic growth, employment, and sustainable development. In particular, government seeks to promote the diversification of energy sources, particularly the use of renewable energy for increased access to sustainable and affordable energies. These efforts are supported by initiatives to implement green mini-grids to supply electricity to off-grid rural communities, encouraging the use of energy efficiency appliances and promoting the use of alternative energy. Following the successful stabilization of A2 and A5 license operated by FAR Petronas, plans are underway at an advanced stage for drilling another offshore well by the end of 2021. Due to the global policy shift on carbon emissions, British Petroleum has exited the A1 license. With the block now available for licensing, the ministry developed a strategy to implement the market, to immediately market and initiate a new licensing round for the block. Electricity and water generation. The National Water and Electricity Company has registered improvements in their production capacity of electricity, with its available generation capacity meeting the peak load demand in the Greater Banjul area. The partnership with Senelec has enabled the increased supply of electricity to the North Bank and part of LRR and CRR. This partnership is being extended to the Basse subsystem to meet the growing demands in the area. As part of the final phase of the rural electrification expansion project, NAWEC has linked Basse and Bansang to reduce the operative costs and improve the flexibility of operations. In June 2021, the foundation stone for the Greater Banjul Area Transmission Distribution Modernization Project was laid. The project will address the current power shortage problem by significantly improving the power supply access in the Greater Banjul area. With support from the World Bank, European Union, and European Investment Bank, the Gambia is poised to become the first country in the world to ensure that all of its 1,100 rural schools and health centers will benefit from a reliable energy supply using solar and battery technology. This will happen through a 20 megawatt solar energy and 400 kilometers distribution project, as well as installation of PV off-grid systems to transform energy access and reduce the cost. Once operational, this will increase energy supply considerably and transform electricity access in rural communities through the construction of a new photovoltaic plant at Jambur. This project will increase access to energy, ensure that education and health services benefit from reliable power, and help address the current power shortages in the country. Given the company's current challenges in transmission and distributions, efforts are underway to upgrade the Birkama to Koto transmission line and will be fitted with a modern supervisory control and data acquisition system. As part of government reforms for SOEs, NAWEC is going through an organizational restructuring aimed at enhancing performance and efficiencies in its operations. Social sectors, basic education. A significant surge in enrollment has been registered at all levels, with number of trained and qualified teachers also increased. Over 1,000 classrooms and toilets are constructed in madrasas and conventional schools ready for use during the 2021-2022 academic year. The sector's development partners, notably UNICEF, World Food Programme, World Bank, Islamic Development Bank, Badia, OFID, MRC Holland, the Kuwait the Fund, AIB, and EU continues to support the education sector to make quality education affordable and accessible to all in the Gambia. When the COVID-19 pandemic forced the closure of schools for 6 months during the 2021 academic year, it was realized that there was no specific timeline for the complete eradication of COVID-19, and that the continuous closure of schools was detrimental for the students' cognitive and socio-emotional development. As a result, a strategic framework to guide the process of reopening schools was developed. Schools were fumigated, and personal protective equipment such as face masks, hand sanitizers, forehead thermometers were supplied to all schools to ensure that students are protected from possible infections. Additionally, class sizes were reduced and divided into shifts, with teachers assuming double shifts to ensure physical distancing among the students. The school's flexible calendar year has been greatly improved across all regions to meet the stipulated 880 instructional hours and recover part of the 252 contact hours that were lost last year when the schools were closed due to the surge of COVID-19. Higher education. In addressing access to higher education, the ministry continues its efforts with the donors of the University of the Gambia's Faraba Banta campus for the completion of the first phase of the project. This phase, which consists of 5 faculties, is expected to be completed in early 2022. Government has received commitment for the additional financing of the second phase of the project, which comprises of the finalizing arrangements for the completion and operationalization of 2 new technical and vocational education and training TVET centers in Deban and Kanilai. To further provide more opportunities for rural youths to access skill training and gainful employment for enhanced livelihood, skill centers in Mansakonko and Julangel are marked for expansion in 2022. In promoting research and encouraging a culture of research, the ministry has developed first ever national research policy that is in the process of being validated. In order to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 pandemic, which has caused a delay in the implementation of the sector's activities and projects, the ministry has developed a business continuity plan to ensure the existence of online platforms and management systems that facilitates online interaction learning and an e-library services for students to continue their learning without hindrance. Health and social welfare. The COVID-19 crisis has shown how vital it is to have a strong supply chain management system that can continue to guarantee the delivery of essential health commodities. The government of the Gambia has secured funding from the development partners to upgrade the current logistics management system, information system, to an electronic system. This will ensure that stock data is available, delivery is expedited, planning and decision-making are timely, and accountability is ensured. In the fight against COVID-19 pandemic, the ministry, through the National Immunization Program, has successfully launched and implemented the national COVID-19 vaccination nationwide. The construction of 8 permanent treatment centers across the country is in progress, and refurbishment works on isolation centers has been signed with contractors. With support from the World Bank, the government is in the process of building a new health facilities to better respond to future emergencies. The Gambia has recently signed a grant financing agreement of $50 million with the World Bank for additional financing of essential health service strengthening projects. The financing will go towards improving the quality of essential primary health care service delivery using resource-based financing approach, community engagements to improve utilization of quality health services, and building resilient and sustainable health systems to support the delivery of quality health services. On eye care, the Gambia has successfully eliminated trachoma as a public health problem, being the 2nd country in sub-Saharan Africa and 11th country globally to do so. The Nutrition Educator of Health Professionals, NEHP, in collaboration with the partners from Turkey, conducted 200 free cataract operations in our hospitals. The ministry is drafting the health policy 2021 to 2030 and the strategic plan 2021 to 2025. The policy will guide the ministry in its efforts to strengthen health services. It will also make them more affordable, accessible to all, without compromising quality. The plan will direct the implementation of the policies. The sector has accelerated the training of health professionals throughout the HHS under the Global Fund. This supported the ministry's efforts towards achieving the required health worker density threshold. However, high attrition rates of skilled health workers remain a major challenge. Significant progress has been registered in the process of developing a national health research policy to facilitate the promotion, coordination, and conduct of research for evidence-based decision-making to improve health outcomes, and that meets the development needs of our population. The health sector is also at an advanced stage to introduce the famous National Health Insurance Scheme for the first time in the history of the country. The scheme will serve as a sustainable health financing mechanism in the country. It is expected to improve access to safe and quality healthcare services, affordable medication, and serve as a social safety net for the poor and vulnerable. To this end, a bill to establish the NHIS authority has been tabled before the National Assembly and has gone through the first and second reading. We're hoping that before the end of the year, it will be ratified by the National Assembly. Women and Children's Affairs. The ministry will continue to work with UNFPA and the Ministry of Health to roll out the Kabilo Bama initiative currently operating in LRR. The aim of the initiative is to improve clinic attendance by women and children as enhanced income of women and families through small businesses. 58 communities in Kiang East and West have so far benefited from this initiative, and 174 women and men have been trained on livelihood skills. Following the enactment of Women Enterprise Fund to strengthen the capacity of women and girls in medium and small scale enterprises, over 96 women groups across the country have benefited, and more than 2,000 women trained on entrepreneurship and business management skills, whilst a total of $7.4 million was disbursed as a soft loan. With support from the AFDB and UN agencies in the Gambia, the Women Act 2010, Sexual Offense Act 2013, Domestic Violence Act from 2005 are currently being reviewed. For effective implementation of these policies and legislative frameworks, the Ministry has established the Shelter for Victims of Violence Quote with support from the UNFPA. The Gender-Based Violence Helpline 1313 and the Children's Helpline 199 are both fully functional and established and operational for the reporting of cases. With support from the UNFPA, a facility at the Shelter for Children was refurbished and currently serving as a Women and Girls Empowerment Center for temporary accommodation and counseling of victims of gender-based violence. With support from UNFPA, a Girls Center for the production of sanitary towels in Basse is being established, as well as Fistula Rehabilitation Center in LRR, funded by ECOWAS Gender Development Center. The Ministry has also facilitated the reintegration of 159 children from Senegal and reunited them with their families. In partnership with Child Protection Alliance, 30 child protection actors were trained on advocacy for increased investment on children. As part of the government's response to negative economic effects resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic, and with assistance from the National Nutrition Agency, put in place a mechanism to assist over 78,000 households in 30 of the poorest districts in the Gambia. This was implemented through a 4-month cash transfer program, the NAFA Quick. This support helped families meet their basic needs during the lean season, which was made worse by the economic hardship caused by the COVID-19 crisis. Youth and Sports. The government, through the Ministry of Youth and Sports, continues to prioritize youth empowerment and sports development. This is evident in the introduction of the Sports Development Fund and Youth Enterprise Revolving Loan Scheme to support the sector's activities. The National Enterprise Development Initiative, with funding from GIZ, has trained close to 200 young youth and women in the agro-entrepreneurial, horticultural, and food processing in LRR. Through the ongoing rehabilitation of the Independence Stadium, it is hoped that once completed, the stadium will be of international standards and qualified to host international football matches. The Gambia participated in the Tokyo, Japan Games with new records established. The Paralympic Committee recently returned from Tunisia and England, where they won gold, silver, and bronze medals in various games. The Gambia national football team has for the first time qualified to the AFCON 2022. The National Sports Council planned to organize a local youth summer camps, refurbish sporting facilities, and send athletes to high-performance training centers abroad, and to compete in more international competitions. The National Youth Council has rehabilitated youth centers across the country, improving their access to skill training and livelihood development initiatives, thus encouraging the youth that it is possible to make it in the Gambia. With support from partners, the NYC has organized a number of capacity assessment and training for youth and migration returnees, and also facilitated access to financing. Lands and regional government. The Department of Lands currently runs its activities using non-digital methods. This has caused slow service deliveries, including difficulties in tracing out all files, maintaining of all maps. As such, the department has started the process of digitizing maps. In addition to the above, the government is working towards having a cadastral survey and registration of legal rights. This system will give a true and exact description of legal rights related to, at any moment. With the cadastral maps in place, issue of land disputes will be extensively reduced, and it provides the means to accurate identification. The local climate adaptive living project funded by the United Nations Development Fund, the United Nations Capital Development Fund, is partnering with the Department of Community Development to support the needed capacities at all levels in implementing the local mechanism. The project aims to strengthen ward development committees and village development committees in order to support activities implementation and increase participation in beneficiary communities. It will also identify village development action plans, implement community projects, skill development, and employment. Having assessed the value service offered by village and community heads to local communities, particularly in their efforts to maintain social cohesion and traditional roles, the government has deemed it appropriate to provide monthly salaries to alcalos and sheriffs. In this regard, a budgetary provision has been made in the 2022 budget to meet this commitment. Data and statistics. The Gambia Bureau of Statistics has continued with its mandate, routine data collection, processing, analysis, and dissemination. The Demographic and Health Survey conducted in 2020 was launched in May 2021. The report provides critical indicators in tracking progress on a wide range of indicators in the area of population, health, and nutrition. Data collection for the integrated household survey was completed in early 2021, and a report will be produced by the end of this year. The IHS provides valuable information in poverty dynamics and vulnerability status of households and individuals, as well as information on other socio-economic variables of the household members. The Gambia Social Registry is a consolidated data containing key information about current and potential beneficiaries of social protection programs. This exercise has so far been completed in 30 districts. The field data collection for the remaining 6 districts will be completed and included in the social register by the end of the year. With support from the UNDP, GBOS has conducted the Access to Justice Survey, which provides information on the impact of a judicial delivery system in the Gambia. In 2022, the Bureau plans to embark on a development and compilation of quarterly GDP for the first time in the Gambia. This exercise began in March 2021, and the preliminary estimate is expected to be published by the first quarter of 2022. The objective of this exercise is to provide a comprehensive assessment on the performance of the Gambia's economy on a short-term basis, as well as establish comparability of economic statistics across the sub-region. Also in 2022, the Bureau plans to conduct preparatory activities for the 2023 population and housing census. This will include the mapping of the country for the demarcation and rebasing of the Consumer Price Index from January 2019 to 2021. Justice. In 2021, the National Assembly passed 10 legislative bills, including those which addresses the protection of women and child rights. As part of plans for 2022, the government intends to invest in more ICT infrastructure, to introduce online applications for intellectual property rights, the registration of deeds and marriage. Benefits of these measures include the reduction of costs associated with starting a business and a competitive edge within the sub-region. Interior. On prison reforms, the new Prisons Act has already been validated. The Act will guide the reforms of operations and infrastructure of the prisons across the country, and ensure that the human rights of the prisoners are respected. An initiative to help prison inmates with the development of income-generating skills before their release is underway. This will help facilitate their reintegration into society and promote their employability after release, thereby reducing the likelihood of reoffending. It is evident that the trend of drug abuse is consistently on the increase, resulting in many of our youths experiencing mental illness that are drug-induced. To address this, the Drug Law Enforcement Agency intends to implement a rehabilitation program for victims of drug abuse. This strategic move will trigger a national shift from approaching drug abuse as a criminal justice issue to a public health issue. The Gambia Police Force has, over the past year, registered laudable achievement in the fight against crimes despite resource constraints and the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. The Zero Crime operation launched early this year has proven effective in combating the increase in criminal activities, as several criminals were arrested, criminals held out, demolished. Those arrested are going through the due process of the laws. The government is committed to providing the requisite resources to combat all criminal activities. In line with the government's security sector reform agenda, and in a bid to invest in training and capacity building of the officers, the Gambia Police Force, in collaboration with the national and international partners, have conducted training for about 600 police officers in different areas of policing. On the fire and rescue services, the renovation of Tanje, Sanyang, and Gunjur fire and rescue stations have greatly improved service delivery in the areas. Meanwhile, plans are underway for the constructions of staff quarters in Basse, Farafenye, Bara, Bakau, and Banjul. This will also include general renovation of all fire and rescue stations and staff quarters throughout the country, and the construction of a fire and rescue training academy at Mandinari Play. Environment, climate, and wildlife. To strengthen national resilience and adaptive capacity of communities, the government of the Gambia, through the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change, and National Resources, have developed and submitted to the UNFCCC the Gambia's 2050 climate change vision for achieving a low-carbon, climate-resilient economy and safe society. To build resilience and adapt to the impact of climate change requires significant financial resources. The ministry has since started the process of mobilizing funding from donors, using one of the 4 concept notes identified in the strategic program on climate resilience. A full project proposal was recently developed and validated. The full project proposal has a funding target of $28.9 million US, and several donors and several donor agencies have been approached for possible funding. Following a request by the government of the Gambia to the World Bank to support the country's objective to build urban and coastal resilience against natural disaster, the country has been successfully included in the second phase of the Regional West Africa Coastal Area Resilience Project 2, WACA. The Regional WACA program provides financial and technical assistance to countries and regional institutions to address coastal resilience using coastal erosion, flooding, and pollution as entry points. Kotu has been identified as a possible intervention area. Government, through the National Environment Agency, is working on a waste management bill, which, when enacted, will, together with the existing anti-littering regulations of 2007 and the ban on plastic ban order of 2015, will significantly assist the country in dealing with plastic waste. The European Union is providing funding to NEA to conduct a comprehensive study on waste management to better understand waste management issues in the country. Government, through the Department of Forestry, is promoting participatory forest management programs where local communities undertake agro-forestry programs on farmlands and other degraded natural forests. This allows the Forestry Department to supply seedlings for annual tree planting across the country and also give farmers the opportunity to grow desirable plants on their farms, further increasing forest cover. As a country highly vulnerable to the impact of climate change, the country has an environmental resilience and development project which aims to stimulate transformational change towards zero hunger, poverty, and carbon emission. In early 2021, the project trained the Jalo Koto Women Garden and post-harvest management processing and constructed an ice plant at Kartong. Personnel management. In a bid to create a merit-based system of promotion, training, and development, and to strengthen effective service delivery within the civil service, the Personnel Management Office and the Public Service Commission are working to implement a robust performance management system within the civil service. The effective implementation of the system will form the base for the promotion and training of civil servants. PMO is currently working with stakeholders to conduct some functional reviews on the civil service. This is necessary to streamline and rationalize mandate of the MDS with a view to reducing overlaps and duplication of roles. It will also improve efficiency of coordination of government institutions. A new pension bill is currently before the National Assembly for consideration and enactment. This bill seeks to repeal the 1950 Pension Act and will facilitate enhanced pension for civil servants and a more efficient pension administration. Office of the Ombudsman. The Office of the Ombudsman has conducted visits throughout all the prisons and detention centers in the country. These visits are premised on the need to provide detainees with access to the services of the Ombudsman. The visits also entails looking at conditions and to make recommendations with the objective of ensuring that they are not kept in inhumane or degrading conditions. In line with the Ombudsman's decentralization, plans are underway set out under the National Development Plan. The office is poised to open an office in the Central River region next year to boost the regional efforts of the Ombudsman in providing administrative justice services to rural Gambians. This will no doubt contribute to consolidating the gains registered by our country in the areas of good governance, democracy, and human rights. Foreign affairs. Government, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, continues to promote the Gambia's foreign policy objectives at both bilaterals and multilaterals in what is evident is a testimony to the Gambia's return to world stage as a respected member, and thanks to the sterling leadership of His Excellency President Adam Barrow, the country's representative has been identified to serve for the first time as the president of ECOWAS recently. This is in addition to other roles that the Gambia has assumed in the United Nations and the Human Rights Commission and other global bodies. Furthermore, the ministry has continued to foster economic, political, and people-to-people diplomacy relations with the rest of the world and has support to forge significant partnership with the rest of the world, including those related to OIC, agriculture, health, COVID-19 security, food security, and education. In a significant move, the ministry recently launched its maiden website data portal in aid of enhanced support to migrants and the diaspora. In 2022, government will build on these gains by renewing its commitment to multilateralism, global peace, mutual understanding, shared prosperity, respect for national sovereignty, and the rule-based global order. This will be done in tandem with representing the Gambia's interests abroad, while providing effective services to Gambian diaspora.
Fastest and easiest way to receive money transfers from abroad? Well, Q-Money and RIA just made it happen. Now you can receive international money transfer from RIA directly into your Q-Money account with no additional cost. Once you receive an SMS alert about your transfer, walk into any Q-Money agent across the country to receive your payment for free or use the money immediately to buy credit, Q-Power, and other Q-Money services. It's fast, safe, and convenient. For more info, call customer care on 1333. Q-Money, New Calgary. Terms and conditions apply. Join the Gambia's fastest growing network and high-speed 4G LTE. Dial *335# to subscribe to QCell's 4G LTE service. There's no need to swap your SIM. QCell, Senior Boss. We innovate, others follow.
Want more in your bundle at QCell, the biggest, fastest, and most reliable mobile operator. We've got you covered with Senior Bundle. With Senior Bundle, dial *303# and get the bundle of your choice. Senior Bundle, affordable, fast, and reliable. QCell, we innovate, others follow.
Check out the all-new TVA at S-Pass Motors. Call 352222 or 35332222 for more information. Light. From the beginning of time, light has been there.
It is integral to our survival and to our way of living.
We need light to work,
to build,
to grow things, and even to see our loved ones.
Light makes things easier and better.
So QCell has changed the way you buy Q-Power to make it easier and more accessible.
You can now access the same service quickly and get your cash power tokens instantly with the new QCell Q-Power.
To light up your world, simply dial star.
Honorable Speaker, in conclusion, in these prevailing circumstances, it is worth noting that adversities and opportunities are two sides of the same coin. Indeed, under the stewardship of His Excellency President Adama Barrow, the Gambia has over the years had its fair share of adversities. In fact, COVID-19 is the most recent and lingering adversities we face as a nation. We must remember that prior to this global pandemic, the country has faced a wide range of political, social, economic, and environmental challenges. Yet, through these challenges, the Barrow government continues to open the doors of opportunity and launch much needed reforms across all sectors of the economy. This includes reforms in our macroeconomic frame, reforms in economic governance, reforms in the way we manage our national resources and develop our human capital. We also undertook reforms in our security sectors while striving to harness the potentials of digitalization, multilateralism, global trade, and data for development. Moreover, to ensure inclusive development, government has over the years adopted innovative financing measures to reduce rural and urban disparities. This is exemplified by the Program for Accelerated Community Development and other numerous infrastructure projects launched by His Excellency the President. These were aimed at not only transforming rural Gambia, but to catalyze economic growth and social development. It is therefore evident that we have come a long way as a country. This 2022 budget is just a testament that we will not only consolidate the significant gains registered in the past, but it reaffirms our commitment to the medium-term framework. The 2022 budget also signals consistency in our policies and once again sends a strong signal of the Gambia we want in the 21st century. In essence, this 2022 budget signals that in the Gambia we are committed to strengthening our productivity, enhance competitiveness and promote private sector as engine of growth in the country. This budget also signals our commitment to a green and resilient recovery that leaves no one behind. Meanwhile, we also affirm through this 2022 budget that in the Gambia, we will leverage digitalization, foster innovation, and leapfrog the Gambia into the next frontier of its development. Furthermore, we also commit to strengthen our human capital stock and sustainably manage our natural resources. Finally, it is the intent of this 2022 budget to signal that in addition to nurturing strong institutions, we will exercise utmost fiscal prudence. Also, we wish to signal in this 2022 budget that it cannot be business as usual, and that going forward, national investment will not be for consumption, but rather will be converted into assets. Riding on this positive wave, this August Assembly is invited to note that the Gambia is the only country in the world that has submitted plans that are deemed compatible with the goals of the Paris Climate Agreement. Several countries and development partners have expressed interest to partner with the Gambia towards the sustainable journey following the publication of the report of the Global Climate Action Tracker. Honorable Speaker, the Gambia is standing tall. I would also like to take the opportunity to thank His Excellency the President, Adama Barrow, for his courageous and supportive leadership stance during this challenging time. I also thank my colleagues in Cabinet and the team of hard-working staff of the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs. I am equally thankful to this August Assembly and the staff of the National Assembly under the leadership of the Speaker and the Clerk for working tirelessly to approve the 2022 budget estimate. On this note, Honorable Speaker, I beg to move.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for tabling the bill, that is the budget speech. Before I call on any honorable member to second the motion, may I just take the opportunity to recognize the presence of Her Excellency the Vice President, who joined us earlier on during the session. Thank you very much. Now I invite any seconder, please. Yes, Nyanija, honorable member for Nyanija.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I rise to second the motion.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the bill titled the Appropriation Bill 2022 be read a second time. Those in favor, please say aye. Those not in favor, please say no. So the ayes have it. Thank you very much. Honorable members, pursuant to Standing Order Clause 87.4, I've adjourned the debate on the Appropriation Bill 2022 until tomorrow, that's Friday the 29th of October 2021, to allow honorable members to thoroughly peruse the bill. But before doing so, I wish to thank the Honorable Minister for Finance and Economic Affairs for his cooperation and tremendous effort during the consideration of the estimates and for tabling the 2022 Appropriation Bill as required of him by the Constitution of 1997. The Honorable Minister did set out government's fiscal and economic development programs for the fiscal year 2022. Equally, I wish to use this opportunity on behalf of both sides of the Assembly and indeed on my own behalf to express our appreciation and thanks to our distinguished guests and invitees for gracing this very important sitting of the National Assembly, and in particular, Her Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of the Gambia, honorable cabinet ministers, members of the diplomatic and consular corps, permanent secretaries and head of institutions, senior government officials here and present, staff of the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, service chiefs, religious leaders here and present, members of the press, and all other invited guests and the general public. And on that note, I now put the question, be it resolved that this August Assembly do stand adjourned till Friday, the 29th of October, 2021 at 10 a.m. Those in favor, please say aye. Those not in favor, please say no. The ayes have it. The Assembly now stands adjourned till Friday, the 29th of October, 2021 at 10 a.m. prompt for the debate and consideration of the Appropriation Bill 2022. And I thank you all for your kind attention. Thank you. Sorry.
Right. Thank you very much, viewers. Here we are at the National Assembly of the Gambia, where the Ministry of Finance has just concluded a marathon budget speech that highlights government's expenditure in the previous year. So before I just go further, I will speak to Musa Amul-Nyasi. Honorable Amul-Nyasi, we've just witnessed the Minister of Finance who has just concluded delivering the budget speech. What is your impression so far?
Thank you very much, Mulawin. I want to say this. From the look of things, if you compare the 2021 budget and the 2022 estimates, you will realize that government have tried to reduce the deficit. Because in the 2021 budget, when the estimate was laid to the Assembly, the deficit was 7-point-something billion. And this time round, if you look at it, it's 2-point-something billion. So actually that shows that the Ministry of Finance have actually tried to see how they cut the deficit. And again, what impresses me most, this is something that I was engaging the ministry all along, that is coming up with a budget line for the alcalis, knowing the responsibilities and the crucial role the alcalis play in their respective communities. I have served in that position for close to a decade. I know how challenging it is doing it without any support from the central government or neither the local government. So having an allowance for the alcalis honestly is timely. And I think moving forward, the ministry will look into having alcalis categorized. Yes, it's a flat rate for all the alcalis. It's a welcome development. But say in the next 2 years, we will hope to see that they categorize the alcalis because the communities are not of the same size. So the fact that the communities are not of the same size, you expect them to be handling different responsibilities.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. That is the National Assembly member, Musa Amul-Nyasi. We will continue to speak to more National Assembly members. We have the National Assembly member for Serekunda, Honorable Alifa Sala, whom we would ask questions before he has left. Thank you very much. I will move further because the Honorable is speaking to somebody else there. So here is the National Assembly member for Busumbala, Honorable Sekuba Jaju. Honorable, we've just witnessed the Minister of Finance delivering the budget speech. What are your impressions? What are your expectations? Have your expectations been met?
Obviously, they have been met. I'm very happy with this year's budget
statement. Overall, he has indicated that Gambia is doing progressively better in the international world. Gambia is able to attract much appreciation from international organizations, and more organizations are willing to work with Gambia, depending on the progressive implementation of programs that they are doing. And also, if you look at this year's budget, what I really appreciate, because since we came in 2017, our goal was how best to minimize the debt burden on the country. So in relation, we need to also how to see work being done. So this year we have realized that the deficit has been increased almost 50% in relation to last year, which is a very big improvement. And then they have also increased more on the development aspect of their programs rather than the recurrence. Recurrence, which are only the allowances and other things that they do within the offices. But now government intends to do more with the leave that they have in cognizance of reducing the debt burden. And also in the budget, I have seen that very minimal amount of loan that they want to go in for it. This year they want to capitalize more on grants and also on domestic borrowing. So obviously, I am very much happy with the report that he has indicated that Gambia is doing progressively well in the international world, which is more important.
All right, thank you very much. The Ministry of Finance has just delivered the budget speech, which totals, looking at the total amount of budget that has been given, is $23.6 million. So live at the National Assembly members' house, Mahmoud Lamin Choi giving you a live commentary, and I thank you so much for following QTV live broadcast at the National Assembly. Thank you so much.